Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back with another weekly update. We've gotten quite a bit of rain this week, so it is looking quite the jungle out here. So please excuse the wild grass because we do need to mow, but unfortunately it's still a little too wet for that. But let's go ahead and take a look around the garden and see what's going on this week. All right, of course, we're starting things over here in the tomato patch, which this year also houses far more than tomatoes, but that is just what I call this area. This back bed here has my determinate tomatoes, and then it has some hot peppers and then some onions down the middle. This bed is in the middle of an onion experiment. So this half is sort of the control. Nothing is going on with these. I'm just letting them be as they are. This end down here, you can kind of see where I need to come through and trim them back down, but the idea is to keep the heights of the onion leaves about 5 inches above the soil. You can see where more of the leaves have shot up from the centers of the onions, so that's what I need to come trim back. But overall, the onions in this bed are doing really well. I have noticed that they are starting to bulb up pretty good, so probably the end of May, beginning of June, I would say we're probably gonna be able to start harvesting some onion. We are also starting to see lots of flowers blooming within all of these beds. We have some marigolds blooming here, these nasturtiums. These are a pretty kind of off-white creamy color. The flowers on these only last about a day, and this is a trailing kind, so you can see how it is running over the side of the bed and then down. So it'll look really cool and really pretty whenever it's blooming all the way down. But the hot peppers, we do have some that are setting. This is the Buena Mulata. I actually have 3 of these in this bed, I think. So here, there, and on the corner there. This is usually one of the earliest producers for us, and it does stay pretty prolific throughout the growing season. So I do grow it every year. Plus it's really cool to have purple peppers. There's also other cayennes in here. So you can see this chunky boy right here. Further down is habanero and Carolina Reaper. The Carolina Reaper is still quite small. That one does tend to grow slower than the other peppers I have growing in here. But this is kind of my super spicy and super hot bed. The determinates, I don't believe any have started to set fruit yet, but you can see they are blooming, so we will have fruit set soon. And then this pretty variegated nasturtium here. I don't see any blooms on those two, or that one yet, or this one, but the other 2 down there at that end and then this one are blooming. So pretty soon we'll have some determinate tomatoes setting. The oregano at both ends is looking really good. This one especially is mounding quite well. This one is Italian oregano. The oregano at the other end is the hot and spicy variety. And I use both interchangeably and equally throughout all of my cooking and stuff. All right, this bed here, I'm gonna start at this angle and then walk around the back so that I won't be casting a shadow over the whole thing. I just kind of wanted to start at this angle because look how full and lush this bed is. It is insanely full. But let's take a walk to the back here. We can start looking at tomatoes. We are starting to get lots of blooming happening. I haven't really checked the tomatoes in a couple of days, but at last glance, I think this one was the one that had, oh no, I'm sorry, it was this one. This is the Super Stew that has some fruit set happening, and these are indeterminate slicer variety type tomatoes. So they will continue to produce as long as they stay healthy and maintain favorable weather conditions. Once it's super hot, the porter, which is somewhere in here, will be the only one that continues to produce pretty well. So we have Darth Vader. Both of these are Darth Vader, so these are like the only Star Wars tomatoes currently growing in the garden. And then we have, what is this one? I have a map inside with all of this stuff. Okay, so here's the porter. This is the one that will continue to produce well into the summer. And then you can see a lot of blooms on these. Moving on down, we might have a fruit set there. Not entirely sure which one that is. Let's see if I can. That might be Juliet. I don't know where the label is, but I'll have to find the map. This one is Black Beauty, and I don't know. It's blooming, but I don't know if I have any fruit set on it yet. And then this one is the Wagner Blue Green, and it is also blooming. So hopefully soon we'll see quite a few slicers really starting to grow throughout here. Now the other day I did thin out some of these radishes, and I need to come through and harvest the rest of them because they're starting to bolt. I saw a seed pod starting to form. Here we go, right here. So it's starting to bolt, which means it's not going to grow in the bulb, the root part anymore. It's going to focus on creating seeds. So I just need to get the rest of the radishes out of here. And then moving on around, this nasturtium is really putting on a bit of a show right now with all of the flowers it has. And then we have jalapenos, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure if it's like a lemon spice or orange spice or what have you. I'll have to take a look at my map. More marigolds. These are the Texas 1015Y sweet onions that were developed in Texas. You can see bulb development happening there. And then further down, past this red divider here, this end is the other part of the onion experiment. So what I'm doing on this end, which I need to come back and do, is basically I take my finger and wrap it kind of around where the bulb is to try to remove some soil from around it, and you can see we got some nice bulb development happening there. The idea is that by removing that soil, it allows space for the bulb to fill in and grow and expand, in theory producing bigger onions. So we will see if that comes to fruition. That's kind of the same theory with the topping of those onions. It helps the plant devote energy into bulb growth. I have controls in both beds, so we'll weigh what comes out of each of the 4 sections and see if either of these experiments pan out or if they're worth doing. As far as the spicy peppers in this bed is going to be the serranos and the jalapenos. Serranos are generating quite a few fruits at this point. I harvested one the other day, right there. There's another serrano that's kind of wrapped up in this cherry rose jewel nasturtium here. Really pretty kind of pinkish red tone. You can see serranos. So yeah, we're starting to get lots of peppers come along, which is really surprising this early in the season, but I am happy about it. And then we have, of course, basil that's growing really well, more marigolds blooming, the nasturtiums like you saw. And then moving on to this bed. This bed is going to be cherry tomatoes all the way down the back, and then along the front is tomatillos and then eggplants. I have 3 different varieties of eggplant. I have 2 plants that are a hybrid variety called Thanos, and that's these 2 here, this one and this one, and I think we might have a fruit set there. And then I'm not sure which order these 2 are in, but one of them is a shooting stars and the other one is Listada di Giandia. It's on my map inside, so I will, yeah, I'll have to double check to see which one is which because I'm not sure where the labels are. And then in the middle here we have different varieties of bush beans. If I remember correctly, there's 2 or 3 types that are planted in here. That's also indicated on my map inside. You can see this one is starting to bloom. Maybe this one is the Tanya's pink because it has the pink flowers. Not 100% sure, but it's there. it has a ton of blooms. So hopefully next week you guys will get to see some green beans or pink beans, whichever they may be, within the weekly updates. Tomatillos, tons of blooms. As far as I'm aware, there's only the one tomatillo developing on one of the plants at that end. But you can see they're fully bloomed out, so hopefully soon we'll have some salsa verde ingredients happening. Cherry tomatoes. Most of these are setting fruit. I think there's one or two plants that maybe aren't setting fruit yet, but they are all blooming, so we should start to see cherry tomatoes galore happening. I am consistently running trellis once or twice a week now. That's pretty typical for this time of year. They grow really, really fast, especially with all the rain that we're getting. And here you go. Here's some cherry tomatoes here. And then this one has a couple of good clusters on it. So we have this one with the leaves in the way, so you guys can't really see it. Good job, Christi. And then this one, and then we have these two newer clusters here. Boy, that is a cluster-filled plant. Sun gold. So there you go. The label didn't want to go back in the garden. Okay, so this is the Sakura. This is meant to be like a greenhouse variety. It is a little bit shorter than my other plants. However, it has started producing. So we will see how well it does in an outdoor environment, because my greenhouse is not suitable for growing inside of it as it sits right now. It gets way too hot in there because it doesn't have any sort of temperature control situations. Really pretty marigolds here. And then we have, this is my Papa's cherry tomato plant, seeds from his last plant. I plant every year. So we have some fruit set there, if you can see those. And then of course, moving on down, we have kind of cherry tomatoes happening all over. I think these are Midnight Snack. I think that's what these are here. And then these are the Sunset Torch Cream of the Crop. They're kind of a teardrop kind of shape. They're pointed at the bottom. So hopefully soon these start ripening because they're bigger than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be more like this size, but they're a little bigger, which is fine. And then we have Sun Green here. This is the plants on the end here, and I am not 100% sure if it has tomatoes on it or not, but it is starting to bloom. So maybe next week I'll be able to show you guys some sun green cherry tomatoes developing. Yeah, I don't see, it's hard to tell though because they're green. And yeah, anyway, there we have it. There's the tomato patch. It's turning into quite the jungle. It's really full and lush and healthy and happy. All the rain the past couple of weeks has really saved my water bill and kind of pushed these plants to really do a lot of growing in a short amount of time. So really cool to see how full these beds are getting. Over here, these beds in the fronts have sweet peppers, in the backs of both of them has okra, and then down the middle has various squashes and bush bean varieties. I think that the compost that I put in here to help fill it up is really dense, so it's kind of causing these plants to struggle to grow. I'm hoping that since it's now mulched, it's going to help all that compost break down a little bit more. I also applied some earthworm castings the other day and some liquid fertilizer to try to help give these guys a little bit of a boost, because as you can see, they haven't really grown a whole lot since the last weekly update. Although things are still living, they're just not moving along as much as the stuff in the tomato beds. So we do have squash. This is the green zebra zucchini, and then there's the camo right here in the middle, and then we have partial eclipse up here, and then along here is melon, and then Malabar spinach is the little one here. This is a green noodle bean variety, and then this is a butterfly pea flower. Roly-poly ate the other one, but we have one here. I guess the seed fell whenever I was planting, so my plan, if I can get this stuff to grow, is to kind of just run it along here and then train it up the trellis. The okra, all of it has germinated. I'm hoping now that the temperatures are really warming up, they'll put on some significant height and really start growing. The bush beans, I am seeing some additional leaf growth compared to last week, but they're not growing as fast as I thought they would. So again, just kind of keeping an eye on things, trying to help loosen up the soil a bit to help these guys get their roots spread through. So whenever I start to transition this bed for fall planting, or then actually the cowpeas, whenever I come to transition for cowpeas, I'm going to get some potting soil, some organic potting soil to put in here, because it's going to be looser and fluffier than the compost. So I'm gonna add that to the top here and then come back with some more mulch. So hopefully that will fix the problem in the middle of the bed, and then the plants on the edges, I'm just gonna have to kind of baby along until they get their footing and their roots are deep enough into where the soil is a bit looser and fluffier and not so dense. Sunflowers, these guys seem to be doing pretty okay. These back here, up here, I planted, I abandoned the evening sun. Those were never going to grow. So what I planted in here the other day was Velvet Queen sunflowers. It was only like 3 days ago, so I don't expect them to have germinated yet. But with all the rain that we got, the soil is definitely moist enough. So once we get some sunshine on them, hopefully within a couple of days we start seeing germination on those. You can see I'm really good at growing mushrooms, so that's always a good thing. These are starting to get quite a bit of height on them. My original idea was to have these really pretty sunflowers kind of give a different color contrast to the stuff that was going to be climbing the trellis. Since this stuff is growing a little bit slowly, hopefully they just want some warmer temperatures and then they'll kind of catch up. We'll see. I'm hoping that the trellis fills in, but like I said, I'm really struggling with how dense this compost was, so we'll see what happens. This bed here is the same sort of situation as the other bed: sweet peppers, okra, bush beans, and squash. There were some bush beans that I planted in this area too, but none of them germinated. I don't know if it was just like really old seeds or what. I obtained them in a seed swap, but it's okay. Things like that happen. I have plenty of other bush beans that are growing. I will say that the beans in this bed tend to be doing a little bit better than the beans in the other bed. So I'm not really sure why. It's the same compost that I added to both beds. So I have no idea, but the plants that are planted along this one are dragon's egg cucumber, Malabar spinach, Hostinator cucumber, a red noodle bean, and then a Kajari melon right here. That's the Kajari melon. It has the same squash as the other bed. It has different peppers. So the other bed has Poblano and California Wonder Bell. This one has, what is the name of that? Candy cane, chocolate cherry, sweet peppers up to here. And then it has shishito. This one was sick last week because of some orange oil that I used for ants, and it has not bounced back. You can see it's just looking worse and worse. I'm gonna give it another couple of days to see if it gets new leaf growth happening or if it's just done for. If it's done for, I'll just pull it out and we'll just have one shishito plant. It'll be fine. That's a pretty prolific plant on its own. A couple of other things to note. I did transplant in some borage here and there. I transplanted one into the other bed, but it did not survive the transplant. However, the seeds that I planted germinated, so gardening is weird sometimes. Then we have white borage here. So things are growing. Things are looking okay. This cilantro is looking pretty good. These candy cane chocolate cherries are pretty prolific at the moment. There's quite a few peppers growing on them. All of the beds, whenever I applied the liquid fertilizer and the earthworm castings, all of the raised beds got the same treatment. And anywhere where I have plants planted receive the same treatment. So we should start to see quite a bit of growth with the sun shining and stuff after all the rain that we just had. So it'll be hopefully exciting to see what these two beds develop into in the coming weeks. Now I will say some things that are surprisingly doing really well are the corn that are planted in front of the greenhouse. Now these also received earthworm castings and fertilizer and mulch, as you can see, and they are looking pretty dang happy. So the variety is Montana Lavender Clay. We have blue borage planted as a companion. This is blue spice basil, and then gypsy sunshine marigolds. So aside from different color contrasts, all of these are beneficial companion plants that provide some that act as good buddies for the corn. Now, unfortunately, what I am seeing, since I aggravated them, is ants. I did not know that there were ants living in this grow bag, so that is a problem I'm going to have to address because I don't like that. So I'm out of orange oil at the moment. I can pick up some diatomaceous earth and come apply that. The only problem is once it rains, I will have to reapply it again, or once I water. Once it gets wet, you have to reapply it, so you have to be really diligent with it. However, that is a food safe option for deterring ants and getting rid of them. So I will have to pick some of that up to kind of treat all of these spaces that have an ant problem. Garlic, it probably looks the exact same as it did last week, except it has mulch on it now. The whole reason that I have the mulch on it at this point is purely for water retention purposes, because since it is warming up outside, the soil does get dry a lot faster, especially in these container environments. So the mulch will help keep the soil moist for a little bit longer to kind of help lower my water bill once it isn't so rainy out. I am still keeping an eye out for the garlic scapes, which are kind of little leaves that come up from the middle and form seed pods at the end. I will be removing those, and then of course once the leaves really die back a lot, these are just barely, they're not ready yet. Once it's like over half of the leaves have died back, then I will start harvesting and curing the garlic. I am expecting probably the end of May for that. I think I planted at the beginning of November. I'd have to look back through my notes, but I'm expecting end of May for the garlic to be ready to harvest. Now, let's talk about the most jungly portion of the garden so far this week. That is going to be the flower bed. As you can see, the flowers are really starting to bloom a lot. The other day I did harvest several and made my own sort of cut flower bouquet. It's inside in the kitchen bringing us all joy, but you can see that so many flowers have opened up. Snapdragons, of course, are this night and day snapdragon is of course popping off really well. Most of these zinnias here are going to be part of the Queenie Lime series. So we have Queenie Lime Red, Queenie Lime Peach, Queenie Lime Orange, you know, whatever they all are. Most of those are going to be right here, and that's what's blooming. More snapdragons. I did I did harvest quite a few the other day for that cut flower bouquet, but you can see some more are going to be opening within the next few days, so no worries there. And then we have some more zinnias, the salvia, of course. This guy is going to produce until the first frost probably. Petunias are still blooming, And then we have marigolds starting to open up, and then this petunia is doing really well here. The hollyhock has put on a ton of growth. I don't know if it's going to bloom this year. It is a biennial, and I planted it last year, so hopefully it blooms this year. We'll see. I do have a few calendula planted throughout here. I don't expect them to last through the heat of the summer, but I had some extras, and this one's about to bloom, so they'll be really cute. Now, blocking my entrance to the patio is a cilantro plant that volunteered, and I just let it happen because look at all the seeds that are starting to develop. So in its seed form, you use it as a spice called coriander. Overseas, they don't even refer to it as cilantro. It is coriander. So I will be saving some seeds to use for that purpose, but I'm also going to be saving some seeds to just have for planting in future gardens. Now, some of these are probably going to fall off the plant and volunteer, and I'll kind of have to address it if it does happen, because this is the path that I like to use to get from the patio into this portion of the yard. So it's kind of in the way, and it makes it very interesting to try to get into the yard without having to walk all the way around. But again, we have our own ground coriander spice and future cilantro plants happening here. So just kind of the trade-off for that. Over here we have ballerina zinnias that are starting to flower, and then what is this? What is Cinderella peach is what these are called, and you can see they kind of get this double blossom on them, so they're really cute. I need to come cut these so that they'll branch out and create more flowers, but I really like how kind of dainty the ballerina zinnias, the coloring on those is like really dainty and kind of girly. Some of the other zinnia colors are really bold and bright, so it's kind of nice to have the super pastel muted color tone in there as well. And then this marigold, look how red it is. That is incredible. Up against these purple petunias, it's so pretty. Then we have more snapdragons. That one is obviously blooming, but we have some more flower clusters there, so we'll see some more snapdragon flowers show here before too long. And then more zinnias over here. That one is the canary variety, if I'm not mistaken, so it's going to be a bright bold yellow. And then of course more marigolds and petunias, salvia. So the flower bed is quite flowery. Kind of give you guys a opposing shot of that. Now, obviously, this still needs to be harvested. It needs to be harvested and then amended, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do with it next. I haven't figured it out yet. There's a few peas that can be harvested and thrown in a salad here, spinach leaves for a salad. Obviously the lettuce will be for the same salad, but that should provide a pretty good meal for Jake and I once I get that all harvested and washed and cut up and ready for eating. All right, the ginger, not much has happened with the ginger other than applying mulch to help retain moisture in there because the containers were drying out very quickly. Turmeric is growing mushrooms. The turmeric will take a bit longer to germinate than the ginger, which is okay. I don't know if that's more mushrooms. So I'm just kind of being patient with these, keeping them moist, and kind of hoping for the best. This was an experiment as well, but if nothing happens with it, it was a $6 experiment, so you know, not much loss there. And if something does happen with it, then I got a ton more ginger for $6. So we'll see. Just kind of letting it go, seeing what happens. All right, so pepper green stalk, you can see it is really filling in. It is, the marigolds are starting to bloom within it. Nasturtiums have really filled out. We have tomatoes on the top row, on the top tier here. This is the fat frog. This is the Firebird Sweet, so you can see we have a tomato there. I believe this is a variegated variety. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know what this one is because I lost the label, but we have some little tomatoes there. On the other side, we have problems that I can just go ahead and show you guys. So these micro dwarf tomatoes, they have a ton of fruit, but all the leaves have died. I don't know. I thought maybe spider mites. I don't know. Lilies died as well, so I don't know if it's just this variety that doesn't like to be outside, or I don't know. So I'm hoping that it stays alive long enough for the tomatoes to ripen. I'm not counting on it, but I can be hopeful, I guess. The peppers though, we have peppers kind of growing all over. So serrano there, I'm pretty sure. And then we have a Thanos eggplant that's starting to get a pretty good size to it. My plan for this one, of course, is going to be for eggplant pizza because that's our Friday tradition. And then more peppers. This is the Thai red chili. It's putting on quite a few blooms, so that'll be fun in a few weeks. And we have cayennes here. Look how long these guys are. That is crazy. But we kind of have peppers all over. Every plant is, except for that one, every plant is blooming and producing, so yay! We eat a lot of pepper, a lot of things that have peppers of some sort in them, so I'm happy to see that I can just come out and harvest soon without having to buy them at the store. Nasturtium flower. All right, my current pride and joy within the garden is the tomato. I mean, wow, they're red, so I automatically jumped to tomatoes. But my current pride and joy in the garden at the moment is the strawberries. I am harvesting well over a handful a day out of here. I have not harvested yet today, so you can see that we are keeping well stocked in strawberries, and I'm eating a few every day. The kids have eaten a few. Jake has eaten a few. So we just kind of, we have a lot of strawberries, and it's bringing me a lot of happiness and joy. Now, as far as fertilizing the green stalks goes, I did not use any earthworm castings yet in here, because with that, I would have to apply it to each individual pocket, which isn't that big a deal, but some of these are a little bit tricky to get down into, like this one. It'd be really tricky to kind of get down to the soil for that. So I did apply liquid fertilizer, and the way that that's done is you just dilute it in the watering can and then pour the whole watering can into the top here, which this one has clogged holes. So just gonna pour the water out of that. I don't want it to become a mosquito haven. And then I'll come back and unclog those holes later. Greenstock does make a cover that you can put over this now to keep kind of front leaves and dirt and stuff from falling into the top. But I've heard people have had birds create nests in them. So I'm kind of, I don't know if I want to do that. So yeah, I just need to come out and clear out the holes so that the water will drain through. Lime tree, putting out more leaves. I haven't seen any more blooms, but again, I haven't really been out here the last few days because of the rain and stuff that has been coming through. Anytime the rain stops, then suddenly more comes, so it's been kind of wet and gross. But it's at least looking incredibly healthy, so that's good. The herb green stalk. I will say that these green stalks are fantastic for creating an herb garden, like a pretty substantial herb garden within a small space. because it has, excuse me, this size has 30 pockets. So you could have potentially 30 different herbs growing. Now I will say, if you grow mint in it, you're gonna lose all your pockets on that tier to the mint. So just be warned about that. So you have the potential to just really pack this out with a ton of different culinary herbs, medicinal herbs, tea herbs, whatever your little heart desires. This one is doing really well. This thyme has been in here for ages. The mint came back from last year. It's the unkillable herb, apparently. Lavender, this is a new lavender that I added this year. The other lavender, the Spanish lavender, that I transplanted from one of the raised beds, was here, and it did not like the transplant, so it actually ended up dying and I pulled it out. But you can see most of these other ones I started from seed and transplanted out. This one I bought. But these, the anise hyssop, started that from seed. Yarrow, started that from seed. Marshmallow, started from seed. Lemon bee balm, also from seed. Chamomile, from seed. Calendula, Mondavian dragon balm. All of this stuff was started from seed, except the tarragon. I bought that and transplanted it in. But it is really nice to come out and cut the culinary herbs that I need as I need them. I used some tarragon yesterday and some dill that I harvested from one of the tomato beds. I'm using thyme regularly, mint regularly. That's one of the coolest things about having an herb garden, is just coming out and harvesting what you need when you need it. So this space right here, man, it is doing everything that I wanted it to do. It has so many flowers blooming in it, so it has so many different bright and shiny and happy colors going on, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm really happy with this. It does also have Persian carpet zinnia planted in it, so as those grow and start to bloom, then they'll kind of replace the petunias, because the petunias will fizzle out whenever it gets super hot. But I'm really happy with how that has filled in. It's a little bit, that one is a little bit more lively than this one, but this one is still happy and pretty. So very happy with the flower situation in those this year. I've kind of struggled with them in years past, trying to get them to be full and colorful and pretty, but looks like this year was my year. But that is the view of the garden this week. This is the last weekly update for the month of April. Next week we'll start May, and that will be really awesome, because then we'll really start to see a ton of tomatoes and hopefully a ton more peppers, and the okra will start to really grow, as well as all of the different squash plants. So I am really happy with where the garden is at right now. All right, but that is it for this week's weekly update. Y'all, look how these redbud trees have really filled in with the leaves. They're so pretty. Anyway, that's it for this week's weekly update. If you liked today's kind of walk through the garden and you want to continue to see how the garden changes and progresses from week to week, please like and subscribe. Comment down below what your favorite part of the weekly update was. Otherwise, until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye!